As a man, one of the biggest challenges I had in my early years was the courage to put myself out there with potential love interests. Now, I find that many of the men I work with today also share these similar challenges. Whether it's a lack of confidence, commitment challenges, or otherwise, it's clear to me that us men have a lot of confusion as a whole as to not only how to find the perfect partner for us, but also in how to become the perfect partner for the soulmate we wish to call into our lives. And in today's episode, I sat down with a gentleman who faced many of these challenges himself until he finally decided to do something about it, figure out what was really going on, and take the leap into turning what was once his mess into the mission he now helps other men traverse and move through in his dating consultation services. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming my man Chris Gillis onto the show. Chris, the dating consultant Gillis, my man, I am super excited to have you here with me. As I just said in the intro to everyone tuning in, Chris and I met recently, and it's just like brothers from another mother. You know, we just talked for, I think, about 40 minutes before we hit record. I was like, damn, dude, I didn't even realize we had been on for 40 minutes already. So I'm super excited to have you on, man, to share your story, to talk about a lot of the things that you see men running into specifically, maybe some of the things women as well. I know you specialize in men, but you know, a lot of the things you're seeing in the world of 2025 today when it comes to dating, some of the challenges people run into, et cetera, et cetera. But before we get to all that, I want to know how you got here, Chris, okay? How did you get into all this work? How did you become the dating consultant?
I became it because, like you, I am an overthinking guy. When things get tough, instead of taking action, I would try to be the smartest rat in the room, especially growing up as a kid. And it worked until it didn't. It got me, through great grades through high school, and got me noticed and got me to become the favorite sibling, and everybody liked me. And and I loved it. And college, I loved all the structure. And then all of a sudden I kick out in the real world, and turns out, no one gives a shit. And I couldn't outthink some of it ended up hurting me to live only in brain and not in heart, and to have a lack of spirit connection as well. And then child biology just got into psychedelic work recently as well to kind of open those up, and been doing a lot of exploration. So got here because I spent probably $100,000 working on myself, doing the weirdest shit you can probably ever imagine to get here. And I love helping other overthinking people who maybe be self-sabotagers to kind of learn to get out of their way, and so they can kind of reframe things and really start living that life of that pure child happiness in those moments that we briefly had, to really find their joy and reconnect with themselves again. And it's through that reconnection of the self again, that's when women start coming in. That's when job opportunities, friends, it all just really start stacking on top of each other. So yeah, man, I guess in some ways I've been training my whole life to do this and helping out friends for so incredibly long. And now I can do this professionally. And yeah, I'm really grateful.
Dude, it's amazing, man, because what you just said there is something really powerful for all your listeners, right? On this podcast, I talk often about the hero's journey. I talk often about these concepts. And a lot of times I have people reach out to me that are like, what is my purpose? It must be so far outside of me. And, every once in a while, yeah, maybe something you've never tried before. But generally speaking, if, when in doubt, zoom out. If you look at what people have said to you your whole life, wow, Chris, you're so good at this. Hey, Chris, could you help me with this? And you look at those things and how other people, what questions they're asking you kind of determines the value they're seeing in you, right? Not on like a value metric, but more of like, hey, Chris is really good at helping with this kind of thing, right? A lot of times when you're getting those results in life and people are asking you about a certain subject, right? Overthinking, dating help, any of these kind of things, leading with more heart than head, any of these kind of concepts, a lot of times that's what your purpose is wrapped up into. It's what naturally comes so easy for you that you would never think it was your purpose because you never trained in it necessarily. I mean, you did, right? Like we've all trained in these things, but at the same time, it comes so effortless that you're almost like, wait, is this something I could actually do? Like, I don't feel like I have to do. I feel like I love it so much that everyone must be able to do this, right? That's Absolutely. One of the weirdest parts of the human experience is when you realize like, oh shit, not everyone can do that thing. So I wanted to call that forward because that's a really big subject on this podcast.
Again, man, we got a lot of our brains are locked in. Yesterday, I was thinking that exact thought when I was driving on Washington Boulevard here in Venice. And I was thinking the same thing about how, so I was, again, all I knew was my little small world. And I was hell bent on becoming a plastic surgeon because I do, which this does help out in dating coaching as well. I do have the ability, a strange ability to understand how people are perceiving our outside cover of our book, from our posture, our body language, the way we shave, or the outfits we wear, the accessories, all that, the cool tint of our glasses. We're constantly telling a story, and so I really enjoyed that part. But it's so interesting when I look back. I'm like, dude, when I was doing this whole pre-med thing, and I was right there getting ready to go to medical school, and I did just enough. The shit that I was obsessed with was I get psychology books from the library, and those are the things I actually paid attention to and actually highlighted. Everything else was just this. I didn't really want to do it, and I didn't know what it was. But I was so just blinded and still I didn't understand that was an option. What I didn't, fast forward again, books, thousands of books later and podcasts and whatnot, I was able to follow into it. But I love what you say. I was thinking about it, how there is, I think some people are like, oh, just follow. I think it's true. Yeah. If you follow the things that you're really good at, and you're like, man, I'm just really good at that. And I think if we can find a way to have this inner pride in it, and it's healthy to have this grounded pride, not this boastful pride, but a grounded pride about being good at something. Most likely, you're going to start enjoying the accolades, the high fives, the hugs of helping these people out and doing it. And I think so. Sometimes it comes in funky ways. It's not what I didn't know this job exists. I never thought I would do this. I'm sure you didn't think you'd be talking into a microphone. As well. But it's wild how, if we can kind of reverse our way into it, and and then the end, it ends up bringing joy. And that's, like we were saying earlier, I think that's the whole purpose of this spin on this blue little marble.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. I think that, I'll at least make it personal for me. I won't project on anyone else, but like, I overcomplicated life for a long time, still do sometimes. And at the end of the day, what I love about plant medicine, for instance, specifically cannabis, because cannabis is very unique in the way that you're still very much a human in the human experience, but you're also connected to your higher self. Plus, the pun is just so good at the higher self. But basically, because of that, you're able to tune into subtleties. And if you know how to pay attention in that state, you'll be able to see trees as if it's the first time you're seeing them. And if you learn from the trees, from the partner, from the dog, from the guitar, whatever it is that you're really purely present with, you'll start to learn how to access that state all the time. And I think that's what the Bible meant when it said, if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must first enter the mind of a child. The mind of a child is brand new. Everything is new. Even if it just saw 10 trees, but daddy, I didn't see that tree over there, Whereas adults were like, dude, they're all the same, whatever, just keep walking. And I think part of that is by design. I don't think it's inherently bad. But I do think that having a balance there is great. I think that being able to come back to the subtleties of just how beautiful the little things in life can be. And how, like, for instance, like you mentioned about me, I never knew I was going to be a podcaster. But when I started looking at what I loved more than anything, it was conversations and talking to people. So from there, it just became, what stories are standing in my way that are preventing me from getting on a larger stage and making a career out of podcasting, coaching, whatever. And you and I were talking a little bit about our stories and, how all of life is really a story before we hit record. And I'd love for you, if you could share, like, from your own experience, what some of your stories have been, if you're open to sharing, maybe how some of these stories have limited you. And then on the other side of moving through and, transcribing and rewriting these stories, what your life is able to look like now. I'm really curious to hear that part.
Well, I love that it's worth just going back on a little bit about how, what makes with children so incredibly spiritual and beautiful is that they are, like you said, everything is to them as they're like, daddy, like, what's that tree over there? And it's blank, and they got the pen in hand. Versus 99% of the time, I walk around and I'm just constantly in story. I'm thinking about, well, what do I already know? And I'm never present anymore. That's why I love traveling, by the way. I've been to 54 countries, and I was like, what's up with me? Why do I love it? It was because I think my default is to fall into story mode where I can already predicting what's around the corner. I already know what a green light, what green means go, red means stop. And so my little brain is like trying to cleverly predict and, predict. And it's such a dull, uncreative, non-spiritual, non-present way. And that is, so my story is, I became that way because I was basically the adult in my household at 7 years old and having to help raise my little brother. So I was there when he was born, and I had to raise him and bathe him and do all those things that 7-year-olds do. And it really put me into an adult. I think that's it, man. It really took me out of being a child. And I don't mean child by the age, but child in that mentality, which is where I think that's that's the most beautiful part of being alive, is to really, really creative and curious. And I think I started just really honing in my this is work, grab my lunch pail every single day, sort of, what's that guy's name off The Office? The kind of dull, boring one.
Oh, yeah. Was it, is it, God. Fuck.
The bigger guy.
Yeah.
And I think I lost, but as you can tell by just seeing the way I am naturally, the animated, this childlike, and I think that's a compliment when people say that I have this ability to be plugged in to see, and I really just want to see and play and interact and connect, and that's what I get to do. I get to help men reconnect with the world around them, and part of the world around them is relationships and is our amazing women. And I realized that being stuck in my old story, I just got tired of reading my same old story. There was a point in my life where I told my same sad story over and over again. And I was like, I'm fucking sick and tired of telling this. I'm bored of this story. And I just noticed, and it was then I started, making just investments in myself and doing it was saying, all right, I'm flipping this over. I'm going to write a new one. I'm going to create new meanings to what happened there, and make it a little more entertaining, so I don't have to listen to myself drone on and on about it very wildly at this point, so performative and so rehearsed, because I know what it would get: the oohs, the ahs, the hugs, the sadness, the girls' numbers, whatever. I use it for all my clever little ways. Wow, I'm being very vulnerable here, but yeah, that's the long and short of the truth of it, man.
Dude, it's really powerful, man, because here's the often uncomfortable truth for you listeners, okay, is that it's glorified in today's world to think of yourself as a victim. It's so ingrained into our society that you very much may not be aware of where this is happening in your life. But you'll notice, based on what area of your life is not panning out to anything more desirable. Seems like you're spinning wheels, etc. I've gone through this in many ways with my story around whether or not women like me, whether or not I'm attractive, whether or not I have the guts to become an entrepreneur, whether or not I'm brave enough to take big risks, right? Like any of these, limiting stories that at one point really did govern the experience I was living. All of your freedom, all of your mission, all of your purpose, all of your empowerment, all of your everything is on the other side of those stories. Yeah. And so while it can feel very nice in the moment to think, well, there's nothing I can do about it. It's just the way it is. It's just my genetics. It's just my parents who raised me. This is just what it is. We were always in a low income area. That's how we'll always be. Any of these kind of stories, it feels great in the moment to just hit the joint again and be like, there's nothing I can do about it. Right. Yeah. But you're never going to go anywhere. And I got news for you. No one's coming to save you, and that's the thing. That's why it's uncomfortable, is that the same people, mainstream media, whatever, telling certain subsets of the population, you should feel like a victim. Be very careful of why they're telling you that, because their only mission is to divide and conquer. It's nothing good that's happening there. Yeah. So absolutely. At the end of the day, until we get over our own stories and start to realize, wait a minute, I have to take accountability. Even though it might not have been my fault, these things happened to me when I was a young age or whatever happened, it gets to now be my responsibility to handle it. And if we see it like Luke Skywalker, he didn't just get a lightsaber, go up and cut Darth Vader's head off and the movie was over. He had to go through trials and tribulations for him to prove to himself that he was worthy to hold that lightsaber. And that's what we're all going through as well. And I think that's why so many men specifically love Star Wars, because it speaks directly to the hero's journey. So it's just really interesting. Yeah.
I just came back from Disneyland, and if you look at my, hopefully he doesn't delete on my Instagram posts, my stories. I was obsessed with Star Wars. It was even as a kid growing up there as
Same.
well. And yeah, to answer also your last point, I realized I didn't share one of the things that I had deep story of unworthiness. Which was very conflicting because I was always told on one side of the mouth, from, growing up that, oh, I could have everything I wanted. And then when I'd ask for something, I was like, no, we can't afford that. We're not, that's for other people. We're not those people. It's like, well, what is this bullshit? But thank God they lit that camera of confusion, or that light of confusion in me, because my whole life I kept scratching my head. Wait, this doesn't make sense. And I had enough of it in me to help drive me. People talk about hitting rock bottom. I was able to, luckily that rock bottom wasn't so, because I did have some confusion on thinking that I was told I was worthy, but there was this dissonance in there. So I wanted to climb up out of there. And then also, yeah, a lot of deep shame. Growing up, I wasn't sure, was told somebody else was my dad who wasn't my dad. So, and then it was a thing like, don't ever talk about it. So of course, being my own little, solipsistic, selfish little child thing, I was like, well, it must be something inherently wrong with me. Yeah, and there was this rinse, wash, repeat over and over again. That just became my story. And then shocker, every time I would invite a relationship in. Oh, and also I wasn't worthy of, I believed I wasn't worthy to, it was a lot of abandonment stuff growing up. And so I get loved real hard and left real hard, loved, left. Guess what I did in all of my relationships? I do great at, being as dressing up, being as cool, funny, whatever I could, invite an amazing girl in there. And then I always somehow find a way to get her to abandon me. I was really powerful at that. Impressively
Dude.
powerful.
And that's the funny thing, bro, too, is like, what you just said there, like, it's not that you don't have power. Like for anyone who's maybe listening to this and is like, oh God, I feel attacked, I'm doing this. You do have a lot of power. You're just using it to victimize yourself right now. So there's not any power you have to go gain. It's just switching from right here to the right over to the left, or to the left to the right, whatever way. But at the same time, we already have everything within us. It's just about, like, the analogy I usually give is kind of like Harry Potter when he's walking down Diagon Alley with Hagrid, and or Hagrid, whatever.
Hagrid,
and
Hagrid. You're gonna get roasted for that. Make sure you put some respect on his name, man.
Totally for you to slip that, but as he walks into the wand shop, they hand him a wand, and he doesn't know. He doesn't really believe he's a wizard yet. He's like, "Oh, this is so weird." Yeah. So he just is like doing these flick wrist motions, and shit's blowing off the shelves. That's how most of us are with our power. We've just never been taught that we have this ability as conscious creators to create our reality in front of us. So as a result, it's not that we're not powerful. It's just that we're unconsciously wielding our power. Mm-hmm. And that's where, like, we're victimizing ourselves. We're playing small. Mm-hmm. We're putting governors on our own experience of life. We're downplaying our own. It's like that takes a lot of focus and effort and power to do that. It's just that it's being done as a detriment, not as a plus side. So
that's very huge. Yeah. That's huge, man. Yeah. And I think, Ryan, I love, like, people say, oh, it's habits are hard, or, I have to create new habits. Like, man, you're already doing a habit. You have created habits of, to achieve a certain weight, you had to create a habit, by choosing every time, oh, I could get up, go to the gym. No, you got really good at that habit of talking yourself out of it. And so, that's all life is, we're just our output is just our consistent inputs. And we're always doing, I love what you said, we're always doing something. We're always choosing. We're always making a choice. So we're not really powerless at all. No, own it, man. In those days, I always, coach my guys, when we have the days when we slip up, maybe it's a porn addiction. Yeah. Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe it's drugs, whatever it is. We can, if the goal isn't to be perfect, because that's an impossible goal, set us up for failure. But I think the goal is to quickly recover and forgive ourselves and understand, okay, oops, I was a blip out of my habit, but keep the mindset and the goals. My habit is still to get up and do that damn thing that I know will ultimately make my self-esteem, how I esteem myself and respect myself, will that pull me forward? So if you can't make it all the way to the gym, say, you know what, I'm just going to put my shoes on and take a walk around the block, whatever you got to do that's going to lift you up and invest a little capital in your self-esteem versus putting it into the bullshit, keep small, piggy bank of selling yourself out. And like you said a second ago, something along those lines, man, there's nobody can knows how to hurt us more. You said no one's coming to save us, and there's nobody knows how to hurt us more and really knows our sore spots than ourselves. Mm-hmm. and our ego's job is to keep it as minimal effort possible and to keep those stories, it's already printed, you suck in there. So yeah, you kind of got to rip some pages out and do it over in there because it's looking for reasons. Just like now we got the internet now. It's looking for an echo chamber of reasons to stay wherever the heck we're already at. But it's, I think, through listening to guys like you and doing, investing in yourself, that's when you say, okay, hold on, I'm worth creating some new habits for.
Yeah, dude, 100% agreed. And, one of the things I say often that, really helped me a lot when I was, starting down this pathway of, a lot of hard stuff of like accepting a lot of accountability of things that I just felt icky to take accountability over. But I knew that it was, the cave I feared most to enter, and therefore was holding the treasure I sought, as Joseph Campbell says. And so one of the things that helped me a lot was realizing two things, which was, let's take empowerment, for instance, right? Empowerment, self-empowerment is hard. Mm-hmm. Victimizing yourself is hard. Choose your heart, right? Being healthy is hard. Being sick is hard. Choose your heart. You're not going to get away from having to go through maybe challenge, again, hopefully overall, once you get, an object in motion, it's going to be simpler. But to start any new habit, it's going to feel uncomfortable, hard, whatever terminology makes sense there. Yeah. But here's the thing. The other side is equally as hard. And the other thing that would stop me a lot, one of the stories, like when I started playing guitar, one of the ways that I talked myself out of playing guitar once I was already really good was I was, I have a double Virgo, like I was telling you. So it's a lot of perfectionism. And so basically one of the things that came through me was it would take so long to become the best in the world that it's not even worth doing. So then the counter thought to that was, well, the time's going to go by anyway. Why am I worried about how long it may take? Like, what am I going to do instead? Just not play guitar and definitely not get better? It's like, why don't I just keep doing it? So like you were saying, even if it's just putting your shoes on, doing one push-up, walking around the block, walking your dog outside just to go poop or whatever. Like as long as you can start with a small shift, that's what I teach everyone about habit shifts is like, it sounds great in theory to be like, all right, I'm going to start working up at 5 a.m. I'm going to go to bed by 9 every night. I'm not going to eat any carbs. I'm going to do cold plunges it's like, okay, that's a big jump from where you're at. Yeah. Let's create small, very noticeable or unnoticeable changes over time, because the most important thing when you've been victimizing yourself for a long time is having trust and faith in yourself. And if you set these gigantic goals that you ultimately can't reach, it's just your ego doing the same thing so it can get back to doing what it wants to do, which is victimize yourself.
Yes, sir.
It's an interesting back and forth.
Yes, sir. That's it. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. You nailed it.
So funny, dude. And I'm curious for you, man, like, I work with a couple men here and there that have dating challenges, but I'm not an expert at that by any means. I don't solely work in that. I'm curious for you, because a lot of men listen to this podcast and a lot of women that may have men in their life that they love, that they can see falling into these things and may want to help them or share this podcast with them.
And I can help women too, by the way, Ryan, but I guess I love doing the hard thing. I don't know if I'm a double Virgo too. I don't know what my thing is, but I lend whatever. I do love a good challenge, and my God, men, we are some challenging motherfuckers to work with. We are stubborn.
I always say, dude, women, like I always give women credit. Like they understand a lot that men kind of, it's not that we don't understand it. It's that we don't prioritize it as much. But like, no, we're going to build businesses and shit. And they're like, hey, we need to have a Wednesday wine night or something, which men can like, giggle at or laugh at. But like, no, that shit's real. And they know how to emote together and share emotions. So they typically, they have challenges, but it's all relative, but compared to men with emotions, men are insane.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, they communicate much better. They get over their problems better. They get over their relationships faster. There's data that supports all of this. It's because they're doing kind of what you and I are getting to do here, seen and being cared for by another man. I think that's what our coaching, it's so powerful just to be seen by somebody, to know that somebody is caring, regardless of what they say sometimes is enough medicine to really make those changes though.
Yeah.
But what else were you just saying?
I was going to say, like, I'm curious for you, like, what's some of the main challenges you see some of the men you work with moving through? Like, what are some of the things that if someone on this podcast maybe so far thought, I think I'm fine in that. What are some of the things that maybe they could look out for if they're thinking this, or they're showing up like this, or they're saying this to their partner, et cetera, et cetera?
This is how you know you're in trouble, guys. And by the way, I would say, yes, I'm totally down to help ladies too. You girls are so easy. I'm like, I need the hard stuff for some reason. It's got to be hard. That's another story. I need to work on myself. I can't.
There's so much more intuitive than men. Game recognized game. Shout out to you ladies out there.
Absolutely, guys. Some flashing lights, some red flags to notice if you're at the point, you can start catching yourself in your dreams or in your thoughts and just taking those quick pauses and be like, hold on, what was that? And especially, I started by doing somatic work. I notice, for example, if I'm feeling anxious, which is just another way of feeling fear, and I'll notice where I feel it, and I'm getting more and more in tune. So I don't catch the fear, but I catch the feeling in my stomach, and then I go, oh, what's going on here? Is this fear? Sure. And then to kind of look at it, isolate it, and then start repackaging it. So if you're starting to notice, that helps. If you notice sometimes though, if that's a little too more subtle, pick up your phone and notice what your phone is. There's many billionaires who know you better than you and know how to fuel your fire and to keep your attention and to feed. We talked about how ego just loves being fed and being told it's true and it's right. So if you start noticing these echo chambers, or noticing maybe you're on some certain subreddits a little more often, and notice what's going on over there. And like Ryan pointed out, is, well, why are they keeping me here? Why are they? What are they selling? They're selling, your time and your attention, selling advertising space. And look at those people around them and say, is this what I want, or is this where I feel comfortable? Do I want to grow, and do I aspire to these people? Do they make me feel better ultimately when I log off? And if they do make you feel better, does it feel better just because you thought you were, the only person? Is that, oh, I just needed to be listened to, which is sometimes what people mistake, just like a bitch session. Look, there's nothing wrong with the bitch session. We absolutely got to get a bitch sesh out. Yeah. But at some point, a good friend, I always say, will stab you in the front. Not in the back. He'll stab you in the front. And he goes, all right, boom. Or I say, hey, man, what do you need? Oh, I got to fucking go off about my ex for an hour. Well, dude, I'll give you half an hour. And then after that, we're going to do whatever. And that's what a good friend, a true friend, hard to find those guys more and more, because we're all obsessed and sucked in our own little, fiddles. But to find somebody. Yeah. What's that?
Weapons of mass distraction,
Yes. That is a really good idea. And also, if you notice that you are starting to make blatant generalizations about women and or dating, and starting to really notice, and you're only, we have that old new car syndrome, where they say, oh, when you're looking for a Jeep Wrangler, you never notice a Jeep Wrangler. And I look for a Jeep Wrangler, you see them everywhere. And if you're looking for, girls with low moral standards and who just want to use guys, now you see them anywhere. You're like, wow, that's weird. I didn't think the world used to be like that. It's most likely because you've lost your childhood curiosity and presence, and now you're expecting things and you're predicting things. Your ego just wants to have that path of least resistance to know that it's right. And if you can't really say, if you're starting to notice a lot of really bad examples of people or relationships in your life, and you notice that means that's what you're attracting in as well. And that's a nasty little suck hole. So if things start popping up like that, yeah, it's a good time to hit the pause button at least and say, okay, I've got some habits going here. Maybe it's time to work with somebody to start noticing and zoom out and start seeing what is really going on, so I can actively choose versus having your subconscious or ego choosing for you.
I totally agree, Chris. And I love what you threw out about be aware of where your attention's going. And also I would add in too, and this may have been what you meant too, but like, look at what ads are popping up for you. Like look at what ads, look at what creators, like for instance, I know a lot of men are, very into Andrew Tate, for instance, and I'm not here to shit on Andrew Tate, guys got some shit figured out. I have no, opinion, but I do think that a lot of the stuff he says is taken maybe not out of context. He's also really good at creating popularity. He knows how to say crazy shit that just gets him a lot of views. And someone like me, when I watch that, I can get he's joking. Because I've heard him on regular interviews where he's like, no, men and women are equal, just in different ways, but that doesn't get as many views. And he's really good at what he does. But I think the challenge is a lot of men that have maybe been wounded. Maybe they had an insecurity. They got into a relationship with, they say, the popular girl, and then she cheated on him or something. And they're like, all girls are cheaters now, or all girls are XYZ, generalizations, right? Then they start finding these people that are roasting women all the time. And it's just it's not going to help you at all. Like ruminating and rummaging around in shit is not going to get you farther, And I love what you said about finding a guy that's, that's a good enough friend to stab you right in the front and be like, hey, that's great, but what are we going to do about it now? Because one of the best little techniques I've done for myself is, we don't want to bypass things, but we also don't want to rummage in them. So what's a perfect balance there? Well, I mean, I'm sure there's infinite different ways to do this. What I found is that if I get triggered and I
Mm-hmm.
start to feel a lot of emotion coming up and I'm like, oh, I'm about to blow my lid. What
Yeah.
I'll do is I'll put a timer on my phone for 2 minutes. I'll separate. If I'm in an argument with Rachel, I'll get alone. And then I'll just kick and scream for 2 minutes. I'll be like, what the
Nice.
fuck? Why is this happening to me? Blah, blah, blah. And when the timer goes off, it's okay. Now, what am I going to do about it? And then
Uh-huh.
from there, I allow those little parts of me that still want to play small to have a voice. That way they don't throw tantrums and get even louder. But I also come in as the father figure, like, all right, I let you have your time to tantrum. Now we're going to talk about it. And we're going to figure out what happened. And we're going to take accountability and we're going to go make amends and we're going to get better from this. And we're going to learn about ourselves because the most important part of life is knowing thyself. And that's
Yes.
why that quote, wise is the man who knows he does not know, that I told you about off camera,
Yeah.
is so important to me, because if I go into an argument, and this is what the ego will want, all right, I'm happy to be the guinea pig here and be vulnerable and share, how this works for me. But when I get in an argument with Rachel, I can feel it sometimes when we aren't even in an argument. She'll tell me something about how, I'm just not going to do this thing that's bringing in money anymore. I don't have any backup plan, but I just don't want to do it. Very feminine, right? That's the way that I think women are. I'm not going to say meant to operate. I'm not going to be a man doing that. But based on the women I've talked to, they all very much feel in alignment with allowing intuition to lead their life. Men are a little more logical. So it makes sense that a man hearing that would be like, wait, are you sure you don't want to set up a system over there or whatever? And I've had to learn the hard way. Don't do that. Okay. They're not asking. If they are asking for it, they'll ask.
They'll ask you for it.
But
They'll say, I'm asking you.
but I'll start to feel that part of me come out that wants to prove her wrong.
Yeah.
And so in those moments, I'll have to stop. For some years, I didn't do this. I had to figure out after and put my tail between my legs and be like, sorry, I do that thing again.
Yeah.
Now I'm aware of it and I'll just call it out. Be like, Rachel, there's that part of me coming in that wants me to think you're wrong, but I don't actually believe you're wrong. I think that actually you're teaching me something right now about how I can access more of my feminine energy. And then we have a great conversation around it. So what I've learned is that the second I start feeling triggered, I just call it up. I'm like, hey, this is happening right now.
Love it.
That way. And this is why having a good partner is so handy as well, especially one that does what you and I's both partners do, which is get into tarot cards and astrology and all the witchy stuff. Because I really feel like that's, something women really love and are very good at as well. They see in the unseen realms. But, again, like having a good partner that knows enough to be like, okay, I know it's not personal now, but also having enough awareness to be like, hey, I'm not going to let this blow up into something that it has nothing to do with you. This is something coming out of me from some old wound. How can I make sure I let that partner know or that friend know, hey, this is occurring right now. I want you to be aware of it. So if I start to raise my voice or anything, you can just laugh at me and just, know that it has nothing to do with you. I think those things have helped me a lot as well. But that's why knowing thyself, I think, is the most important part of life.
I love that. Made me think of a couple of things. The Rock, big old Dwayne said, when you focus on you grow. When you focus on shit grows. I love that. Yeah. How many? And I literally had that as my screensaver for like a year and a half. Because I was trying to train myself into catching these very deeply rooted. I mean, I had this entire book memorized. Like I said, I was able to perform it and wrote, and I really had to have some sort of reminder. So every time I pick up my phone, I'd see that. I'm like, that's right. And it would just ask me, what am I subconsciously mumbling to myself? And my grandma always said my mumble was my best friend. Oh boy, that's interesting.
Yeah, shots fired, grandma.
Right. And one of the things you mentioned, I live in LA where square footage is so goddamn expensive. We don't have a panic room like you have where I can scream and lose my shit. So what I do every morning after, I wake up and I think about, what was I thinking before? Because that's all sometimes, my subconscious is letting me know what's on my mind. And then I do what I call, a lot of people drink their coffee and take an actual dump. I do a brain dump where I grab my journal, which is sitting right here, and my favorite pen. I love it. I feel good when I grab this pen. Again, life's all about feelings and whatnot, just any pen. And I journal and I dump out the feelings that I had, the things that I had. And just by putting some separation between there, almost like you were able to do, I'm able to get it out, dump it out of my body. And it's so powerful to write something down, use the different parts of your brain, and then to see it, that's a different part. The occipital lobe is like processing it, prefrontal cortex working on it. And then I get to analyze it and I get to look at it. And then I get to go, And then once I got the kind of pieces out, I'm able to almost like pull that little monkey out of my back, put him on there and smush him down for the day, not forever, because he's small. He's been there for a long time. He's going to grow again, but for that day, and then move about my day. And one of the things, the biggest compliment / frustrations, I think a lot of people, they see me and they go, "Oh, Chris just got it easy. He's a natural," or whatever. Guys, I couldn't be farther from the natural. I wish I was a natural. I do so much goddamn work before I'm publicly safe and viable. It's kind of mind blowing. They always say the best coaches are the ones who've had the most problems, and I think that I did a great job of finding out in a lot of problems throughout my life, and to get myself into a lot of things. The other thing I want to say is, and I think the true gift is so awesome about having a partner like you have and we have, is that they allow, when we on our little dark side, little voices start going a little crazy, and then it goes from a mumble that speaks out to them, and then we slap them with it, and then they get to smack the shit out of us and tell us we're being assholes or whatever. And that is a true. That's when the gift of really finding a woman who you care about, to the point of going, okay, I want to be a better man. And by being a better man for her, you end up having to become a better man for yourself. And those are why those men who do so much better in life when they have strong connections where they feel that they're seen, respected, and heard. So yes, and I love what you said earlier, man, there's no way of getting out of life's pain. Life is going to be painful. I always tell joke guys like, oh, it's so hard. I'm single. Like, okay, well, got some good news and bad news. I'm going to get you a girl. It's still going to be hard. It's going to be a different hard though. and no matter what happens. And that is, there's no way, as long as life is hard, I think it's letting us know that we're still alive. And that's about as good as we can. And we can minimize the moments of the pain through brain dumping or through losing your shit, screaming for 2 minutes or whatever. So we can get back into there. But it's just so not creative and so boring when we just let our lives become dictated by what our 7-year-old brain made up.
Yeah, dude, 100%, man. You said so much good stuff in there. And, one of the things that, I found, and I'm sure you found this too, I think most people that become obsessed with self-development have found this relationship. But the same way that if you go to the gym, if you've never worked out in your life and you're like, man, I got to get to the gym. So you get to the gym, you get there on time, you work with a trainer, and you wake up the next day and you're like, dude, I can barely move my body. Why would anyone do this? This sucks. I hate this.
Yeah.
Well, if you do that long enough, it won't even be a good workout unless you wake up with soreness. Like, you'll be looking for it. You'll be excited when the burn happens.
Yes.
And so if how we do anything is how we do everything, and if one thing is related to everything, then how can we find the same amount of excitement and joy within that? And I think the perfect balance, because like we were also talking about before we hit record, we don't want to get into a healing crisis either. We don't want to be like so excited to do shadow work that even when we're in a good mood, we're like, how do I piss myself off so I can find some pain, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we don't want that. So it's kind of like, when I look at like how I've worked out my whole life, right? Like, I went for years in just like exercise addiction land, just straight up. I'm constantly injuring myself, constantly telling myself I shouldn't work out, then doing it anyway, just straight up addiction, And then what I started realizing was actually I could get a lot more done with less amount of time if I was more strategic. Yeah. And so since then now, I love the workout pain when it's there. Yeah. I love that. But I don't go searching for it anymore. If I wake up and I don't feel it, I'm like, hey, I still got a great workout in yesterday. But when I feel it, there's that part of me that's like, oh, dude, I really love that. But now I've found beauty in the absence or presence of that. So I don't need either. I'm just happy to be there. And I think that's the kind of equilibrium or balance that we can find within any of these aspects of life that, like you're saying, like, life is definitely pain, but pain is also a teacher. And it can teach us things. And the more that we go through it, the more that we realize how strong we are. Because if we can handle all these things that were really painful, then not only are we fit to be in our human body, having a human experience, but also, like you said, I think the reason that coaches a lot of times have gone through so many challenges is not only because it's relatable, but because it's also understandable. And what I mean by that is that, if you show up to a client and they're like, so Chris, like, did you have trouble getting women in your life? And you're like, nah, dude, I was bagging tens my whole life. But are you having issues? Like, they're going to be like, they're going to feel really off put to try to talk to you. But if you tell them like, hey man, I've had some good luck, but I ran into challenges and my mindset and everything. And you're just an open book about what happened. Now they feel so much safer to be like, okay, here's exactly what's going on. Because now they can see like, hey, you've gotten out of it, but you are still relatable to me. You understand and remember what that feeling was like.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of what makes us such good coaches is that we also remember those times and we're humbled in understanding that, hey, some new issue could present itself at any point in time. So we're just happy to be here,
Yeah. One of the things, and let me know if you used to feel the same way, but I always, you mentioned what are the things to know that some signs to know that, it's time to get some help, and that you see in guys. And again, I saw it myself because I mastered it. Is I had this if then mentality. Mine was, if I continue with this suffering for a certain number of time, then it's only if once I get through there, then I can be happy. Then I can turn that switch on. And that's the biggest bullshit. And there's so many people and this amazing capitalistic consumeristic society that we've created for a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad because we hold out and we think, okay, I'm not happy until this happens. Like you said, until I have some crazy goal, a 6-pack, and maybe I'm, going from obese or whatever. That's then when I will be happy. Or I cannot, what I see all the time is most guys think, they can't, they're not inherently worthy. And that's so sad until they have enough money for a house or a particular job or some other metric, unattainable metric. Their ego's constantly raising, like the carrot in front of them until they can never quite reach it. And that was, and I lived that way a long time. And I knew it was true. I knew I was in trouble. And I probably have a couple girlfriends listening to this right now is because I'd hear this, they'd scream the same shit at me over and over again, saying that Chris, no matter what, I'm never going to be good enough for you. And that was a really good reminder to let me know I'm leaking, that I don't ever feel good enough for myself. And man, that was, and having that reality and every day waking up, having that inherent, zero value and having to build it back up was a lot. And it's what I've come to. Again, I'm a guy. There's moments where I definitely, I don't always follow everything that I say. I try my best and I do a pretty good job. And so don't think we may catch me on an off day. I'm like, oh, Chris seemed a little bit off. But the truth is that what I have now coming to really catch myself when I'm really obsessing on, I need this to happen or this many followers or this many clients, whatever like metric I'm giving myself, then I'm like, hold, pause. And I really have to ask myself and know the power you talked about of going to the gym. I love that metaphor of going to the gym with love. And to what I've learned is it's the fucking process. That's all that really matters. Who knows what the outcome's going to feel like? But all I can know is this process. This is right here and right now. Can I control? Can I make it feel good to, can I, I always got butter in that slide so that, man, I could just zip right down there and it can be fun because who knows if I'm going to, what the comet's going to fall out of the sky on the way back from the gym. It's like, well, while I'm still on this mission to make a certain amount of money or have whatever I'm trying to find. But if we can, I think, really just learn to refocus on that. We can use it almost like a direction to kind of, but just know there's going to be paths and turns, but to stay fun and enjoy that drive on there. That has been the biggest probably challenge for me. And it's something I still work on every single day. And I'm blessed, but it's also sad to know there's a lot of guys out there who need help as well. And I'm happy to help them kind of Sherpa up there and just really enjoy the hike. By the way, I used to hate hiding. Funny, I say, as a kid, I was obsessed with just getting there. And my grandpa would get mad at me and like, why are you bitching? I was like, I was like, dude, you're missing out on everything. And now I get to do some of these same hikes as a kid, completely different experience. It's wild.
Dude, it's amazing, man. And that's why, like, they say when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, and it's like, this is the beauty for anyone listening who's like, oh my God, fuck, like I feel like attacked. I feel like these things are in me. I'll give you guys a good thing here, right? You may be thinking that you have, if your ego's like mine, when this happens, your ego will cast that you have like 25 to 30 different problems, totally different. In reality, you probably have one challenge, like you mentioned, a lack of worthiness issue that's spanning out into maybe 20 different areas of your life. So when you start working on that one issue, multiple areas of your life, if not all of them, will improve as a result. So it's never as much work as you think, and in terms of as many areas, but it can be equally challenging work that pans out to be a lot bigger of an ROI than you may thought beforehand. That's something that I've found definitely relevant in my life. And again, like, I appreciate you being honest and authentic, because let's just be real. No one has a perfect day every day. I have some days that make me want to rip my goddamn hair out. But at the end of the day, that's also what keeps us relatable.
Yeah.
I remember when I used to watch Joe Rogan or Aubrey Marcus before I started podcasting, whatever. My favorite episodes were the ones they were talking about, like, yeah, man, I'm not perfect. I have my weird days. And I'd be like, oh my God, thank God they have one. It's like, yeah, dude, everyone has them. And if people aren't telling you they have them, they're just lying to you. Everyone's got them,
And it's so sexy. And that's one of the things I teach my guys. Is that, Fred Rogers said, I think it's like, what is mentionable is manageable. And when we have the courage and the balls to say, dude, I'm having a shitty day, or and it's so sad how guys, and notice this, if you walk to your friend and say, hey, how you doing, man? You're good. You're good. Guys, we always do that because we don't really want to hear. We're afraid. That's actually, so we're inject. I'm spoon feeding you. Just tell me you're good, man. Cause I can't handle your emotions right now, Ryan. I'm not comfortable with it. It's so ridiculous. But when we can share those, authentically without trying, like when I would tell my old stories, I was being manipulative. I wanted a certain reaction. I had an expected outcome, but just to share something, that's when you're really onto something. And my God, that is so freaking sexy. Guys, girls, everything, and dogs, they're authentic. They share what they is, and that's just attractive. And those are the things that drive us, because it's so relatable, it's so human, and it's just not cool. So the irony is, being perfect is very gross. It's not sexy. Yes. And what is sex? No one wants to be around a perfect. Girls don't want to date guys. And I talk to a lot of women, and they'll be, hey Chris, watch my thing, and I'll be like, what? That guy's a fucking stud. I wish I looked like them. She's like, oh, I don't know. And I'll dive into it a little bit more, like, oh, he looks like he would never have a drink with me. Like, they've already told their stories. He wouldn't have a piece of birthday cake at my party. I'm like, interesting. Perfect. Whereas when we can, like authentically and just be human and have the courage to be seen, that's so incredibly sexy, because that means that I'm most likely going to have the ability, then I'm going to have the understandings and the peace of mind to see myself, because I've already done my 2 minutes of screaming and losing my shit. Now I'll be able to hold her feelings and her emotions as well, and consider that. And that's what everybody wants. We just want to be seen and considered and heard, man.
Definitely, dude. 100% agree with that, man. And, I really think this is one of the challenges of the world, probably forever, but especially right now in this, lifetime. What I've noticed a lot in the spirituality space is a lot of this. A lot of people, I wouldn't say men or women. I mean, it's really about equal, but, men specifically needing to be the guru, and that's a very specific energy. I'm not going to call it any names. I could, but
I think, we must know the same guy, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just thinking of a name too. I'm not going to call him out.
Dude, like every time I come to LA, for instance, right? And Boston's got its own weird challenges, but in LA or Austin, those are the places I find the most people that are like going to say grand rising to you. They're going to have all the clothing, and they're just going to be a douchebag underneath. They're going to treat their partner like shit. They're not going to have good relationships. They're not going to have integrity, but they sure look the part, And I think that's what, unfortunately for those people, I don't think they realize, because I've seen some of them doing it recently, and everyone's calling them forward on it, really. But, I think that's one of the challenges, is that deep down, they're just terrified to be seen as not perfect. That's all it is. And as a result, they're having to portray this image of, yes, I have it all figured out. Yes, I am the guru. And it's so cringy when you're around it, man. It's so cringy if you have eyes on me, because you're just sitting there like, dude, no one has it all figured out. And if you think you do, why are you in the human experience? The human experience is not the place that you have it all figured out. It's where you find the beauty and surrender and not having it figured out. And only then do you, in a way, paradoxically figure it out, because the point of life is not to ever be figured out, because we're evolving every single micro moment. So there's nothing to figure out, because nothing is stationary, nothing is objective. So it's just like those kind of things I've seen a lot in the spirituality space recently. And it's been interesting for sure. So I was just thinking of that when you mentioned that, because that ability to just come out and be your full self, regardless of what that is such a strength. And it's also some of the best medicine if we really want to be of service, because once we give the permission by saying, hey, you know what? I'm not having the best day. Then it gives the next man or woman the permission to say, me either. Let's talk about it. And someone's got to go first. And so what I always say is that if you've been around these areas long enough and you've had someone gift you that ability to go first and say like, hey, I'm not having a good day. So you can be like, yeah, me either.
Yeah.
Then it comes a time where like you get to be the one that starts it, you know? And that's what I
Yeah.
live for, dude.
So I love how life, we always just seem to swing from one extreme of the shoulder to the other extreme of the shoulder. So Gen X, millennials, we're like, oh, power through, don't talk about shit, feelings or whatever. If you do, that's only safe for the few elite, and there's certain caveats. And Gen Z now, they walk up. So specifically, they've learned from these lessons. And so they're doing something now. There's a whole dating technique currently called floodlighting. And they do what you did, but they do it so they just barf out. They get on dates and they just barf out all their traumas, all their stories, and that's because it's truly, but they're haven't yet. The stories it's packaged stories. It's stories stories that they wrote, with a crayon as a child. And, they've memorized and rehearsed, down, into their gut and their soul. So which is still true. And they're feeling that out there, but it's not true, taking agency and ownership of the hero's journey that we chatted about. Yeah. They're still not there, but they are sharing some of the, kind of letting people know, hey, you can expect me to fall apart when this happens. These are all my triggers. Versus really taking ownership and saying, hey, I'm working on it. This is what I learned. This happened in my life. And maybe it's something that has to be shared on a first date, or very early on. But instead of repackaging and saying, hey, this particular thing happened to me, and this is what I'm learning, and this is why, this is how I grew from it. And the subtext is why this is not your problem anymore. This is mine. And when if it does come up, you can just gently remind me, hey, put that back in your U-Haul that you drive around with every day, and stop, dumping it out on me. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what hopefully maybe the next generation of daters and people can have these more authentic relationships, because who knows? I know I live in Los Angeles, man. We come here for a lot of reasons. I definitely came here for, a deep desire to be seen, and we a lot of we have more beautiful, lonely people than you would blow your mind if you saw
crazy,
how
bro.
many.
Every time I come out there, it's like everyone is beautiful.
Wild.
And I've never met more depressed people. And I'm like, guys, you guys have the sun all year round. I'm in Boston where it's 20 degrees.
Look at you. You still got the guns out, man. Like it's so sunny funny. Day. It is. And even though
6 months of the year, except work on shit,
yeah. And even the garb and the whatnot, it's like, well, like, is this guy, are we using this mask of perfection? Like you mentioned, some of these guys who are trying to levitate and float around like their master Yoda. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a couple handful of those people that are on that elevated Buddhist level. Most likely not. Most likely they are. That's almost their like tattoos of, hey, don't fuck with me, when tattoos used to be only for tough guys and signal things, not cool fuck boys and metrosexual lumbersexuals, but to actually maybe that's their new way of like don't come too close to me, because I'm scared, right? And I'm not really fear, and there's nothing, again, that's not attractive, and no one wants to approach a person like that. It's just so much sexier to be able to be comfortable in our own skin with our flaws, bruises, scratches, eczema, whatever it is that we're currently working through. And all that really people really give a shit about is, well, how do you feel? How does this person feel about themselves? Because eventually that's going to affect me. It's going to bleed into me. I love talking with you because I can tell, man, done a lot of work. You feel good about yourself, and you don't think you're perfect, but just by you being you, it just emotes and it lifts me up. And I think that's why we've had a really cool convo, because we're starting to really love ourselves for who we are without giving away our power and needing some if-then thing to happen. Or our girls, if they pull the wrong tarot card, they're having a bad day. So gently have enough in our reserve that we can hug them and let them know. My girl got mad at me today, everybody, this morning, because she didn't have time to pull her tarot card. It's a PhD girl, by the way, if you're wondering. Like, it's a very, very, very smart woman, valedictorian. So if you're thinking, oh, who is this girl? Like, no, she's very, very smart, but it fucked up her schedule, and so she was off. And I think she's a little mad at me about it. She thought, I'm sure she had to place her. She didn't have her 2 minutes to beat. So I'm the closest thing. We don't have a dog to kick. She kicked it on me, but I'm tough enough. My ribs are strong enough. I was able to love her back and, send her a text and let her know, hey, sorry. You didn't have, weren't able to get that. Hope your day, goes a little bit better. And that's old Chris wouldn't have been able to do that. old Chris who was insecure and didn't feel like he was inherently enough. And also defensive because there was a lot of old buttons that could have pressed on there. And I didn't have great relationships. And so this is a true gift and I love it. I think one of the biggest compliments I got is some ex ran into my my girl and she's like, "Oh my God, Chris is so lucky to be with you. You must have really changed him," or something like that. She goes, No. Chris is a product. I am with Chris because he is a product of the man that he's become on his own. And that's just another, part of the circle that he is. And it's not because of me. He's done the work on himself. And that really made me feel like, wow, she stuck up for me and she said the right thing.
That's the best, man. That's what a relationship is meant to be. I'm so grateful I have Rachel. We've been together, God, 7.5 years now, dude.
Wow. That's awesome.
Amazing, amazing time. And I feel like we're totally different people now, but we're also the same people, and it's been really amazing because no one in my life has seen me from such a high standard right from the beginning and never settled for less. Like anytime I fall into my smallness, she's like, "You can do that, but that's not who you are. And I know who you are. So you're not bullshitting me." And that ability is incredible. Like there is nothing that I have found as a man anyway, that beams me up more than knowing that she's proud of me, not needing to hear it because I can tell myself those things, but her just being like, "Damn, like you've really worked on yourself." And likewise, like we both grown so much together. And that's really like, to say a joke real quick, it's not a joke, but I'll say it in a joking way. I think the point of a relationship is to trigger each other into enlightenment, And so one of the most important pieces of advice I heard was don't be afraid to let it get messy. Don't be afraid to start the argument. Because if it's true love, I'm not saying get physical or anything crazy here, but I'm saying like, if you feel angry about something, don't be afraid to rock the boat and say, "Hey, I'm angry about this right now," because true love will always want to come back together. And if you look at alchemy, there's a part of the process in which you have to separate things. I think it's coagulation, and then things come back together, And there's also, if you look at the entire stage of alchemy, there's a great episode of Mystery Teachings on Gaia called, I think it's the Relationship Alchemy. And it's a perfect rendition of how the alchemical process pairs up with relationships. And it's so beautiful because in that process, there's some chaos. But at the end, you get this beautiful new product, which is the union of two souls coming together. And so, it's just, again, to sing women's praises, it's just been amazing to have a woman in my life that's willing to call me on my shit only to build me up, so that I have the awareness to take accountability and build myself up, I think that's so powerful, man. So powerful.
We just had a really cool, I've been with my girl for just 6.5 years. And
sick,
we had a big moment the other day. Again, it's been a lot of work, but she was able to start off, voicing what she's feeling and then saying the story. And the story, "Hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm feeling, really like, I don't know, it was pissed off. There's like an inequality because I have a story right now that you're not contributing as much in household chores or something like that." Ironically, I had the same fucking story too. And I was like, I was ready to pull an abacus out and like, all right, let's actually make facts. But I didn't go there. Like, how you said, you just kind of want to feed it through my, my male brain. It's like, well, logically, who's right, who's wrong. And and of course, that's never what a relationship is about, isn't being right or wrong. It's beginning to understand somebody. And of course, it's really difficult to understand a partner until we can understand ourselves. And most girls aren't interested. And I see that over and over again. And they say, "Hey, I need a guy to start understanding and caring about really getting to know himself." And I think that's why the work you do and what we do is so important, because you're just that's not an emphasis, not something we're taught in school on really how to do that. And by her starting with my girl, starting off the fight that she thought there was going to be a fight, she immediately, by her saying that, I changed my stance and I knew what it was about. And I was able to hear her and hold that space. And then she kind of just almost like, it just dissolved away. It was so crazy. It just dissolved away. And she was like, "Oh," and then it ended. She's like, "Oh my gosh." And she told me she was expecting it. It was all going to end in a fight. She goes, "Blah, blah, 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 blah. Here's my story. And I expect this is going to end in a fight. I'm scared, but here it goes anyways." And by saying that, it was, man, I had so much grace for her because I didn't feel like she was telling me, I didn't get defensive. It was like, oh no, let's work on your story together, and let's see if there's any validity. And there was some validity to it, as there is almost everything.
Yeah.
So, but by owning that, we were able to get ourselves back on the track. And yeah, it was worth one of those moments where we're like, hey, let's do more of that. Whatever you did, that was the fastest we've ever put a conflict out, and we're able to grow. And I felt closer with her for sharing that. And I bet she felt closer with me as well by being able to, who knows, through her tarot work, whatever the hell got her there, to be able to voice her feelings. I don't care. Keep on doing it. I literally bought crystals and all sorts of fun little shit for her. Whatever.
Dude,
I'm going to keep pumping money into that personal growth. That's all it takes.
It's amazing, man. I mean, I literally tell Rachel all the time, I think women are natural shamans. And I think that the women that are witchy are the ones that have tapped into it. Maybe others are not meant to tap into it, but like literally they're just natural shamans. Like Rachel will read the stars, compare it to emotions, and then just read me like a fucking book, dude. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, I know she knows me very well. We've been together long enough, but at the same time, like, holy shit, like what the hell just happened to me? And it's the best feeling ever, because what a guy's like, novelty. That's one of the things that will keep a man very much entertained. You know, there's this kind of toxicity going around with men of like, oh, I need a bunch of different women. No judgment. It is what it is. But I think what you're finding is that it's not that you necessarily need a bunch of different women. It's that you're wanting novelty. And the way that you think you get it is just by having tons of women. But that can also cause a lot of chaos in your life because, I mean, you're spreading your seed a lot of places. You're spreading your energy. I'm not here to judge. Just is what it is. But if you can find a woman that is very unique in her way to work with her unique gifts, it keeps the relationship novel.
Yes.
Man, anyway, I mean, that's like a lot of days I feel like I'm dating a different woman from day to day in a good way. You know, we've came up with fun alter egos for Rachel and myself, and that's how we keep it going, man. It's super fun.
Absolutely. No, and absolutely. You just said it. If we keep showing up, just living life by our same stories over and again, there's nothing novel about that. I mean, that is the most boring we know. And I think that's what happens when I'm like, she's like, oh, here we go again. And it wasn't a here we go again. And that's what made it so interesting and so creative. It's the here we go. When I feel like when I'm stuck on the relationship, whatever, it could be with work. And I used to be in up 15. I was like, oh my God, here I go again. Here I go again. Anytime life feels like that and, and starts to experience that. And then my eyes just unfocused. I'm like, oh, okay. My lunch bill like that guy, at the office, and just I got another day, another dollar, here it is. And that's such a shitty way to take advantage of what could be. There's any point, there's a million different options. And sometimes, my lazy brain just wants to think there's one way or loves to predict. Thinks it's smarter than all, and then the multiverses that I exist in. And being in a relationship like that, or being single like that, being anything like that, it's just a boring way to live, man. And at some point, if you notice anybody listening, if you're like, God damn it, this is Groundhog's Day number, whatever it is. Yeah, maybe try something different.
Yeah, dude. And speaking of something different, man, I want to make sure, I can't believe we already blew through an hour, man. This is absolutely amazing. And I want to give you plenty of time to share with the listeners where they can find you. Again, we're going to link everything that Chris talks about in the show notes. So anything he mentions, just go down to the show notes to find it. But where can people find you, connect with you, work with you, and stay up to date on all the amazing things you're doing, man? Because I imagine a lot of men specifically and women from this podcast will want to go follow you and keep up with everything you got going on, man, because this is a really eye-opening episode. Even for me, I love connecting with you, man. It's been an absolute blast. So tell the people where they can find you, bro.
Oh, tell them what it is. I am on Instagram at Consultant Chris, the word consultant and the word Chris. I got TikTok for now. We'll see how if this is an evergreen video, if it's still around. Who knows? Who knows about anything? YouTube, also Consultant Chris. On there, and I'm just, pardon me, I'm not nearly as awesomely tech savvy as Ryan is. So I'm trying to add on this podcast. We'll figure it out if I can get that on there as well, or what we can do with that. But most importantly, find me at my website is Consultant Chris, also www.consultantchris.com. And yes, you can watch my stuff and my videos or whatever, but that's just kind of listening and watching. If you want to figure out and actually do something, pick my brain on some directions you can take, like I said, to kind of, grab a pen and paper and start with some new micro habits and some steps to get what you need. you can book a free call with me. I'll chat with you, give you 30 minutes of my time on Consultant Chris. You can throw your information in there and we'll pick a time on the calendar so we can really dig in and figure out what's going on in your unique life and your set of circumstances to see if I can help gain some clarity. And the truth, most likely, like I said, I was really great about creating a lot of problems. Chaos Chris was probably my nickname for quite a while. So I can probably relate and point you into damn near any direction because I probably had to work myself out of the hole that I very cleverly kept that shovel in the days and got myself into.
Dude, I love that, man. I so appreciate the vulnerability and the authenticity because it's such a superpower. It's sexy, like you already talked about. And it's honestly, I don't want to use the terms right and wrong, but for me, subjectively, it's the only right way to go. Just be fully yourself because there's 8 billion fucking people on the planet. You're not going to be liked by everyone anyway. It's fucking exhausting. So the more you are yourself, you'll find the exact people that aren't only right for you, but also charge your fucking battery like we're doing for each other right now.
Yeah.
And the rest of the people, they're great people, but they'll find their people that charge them up. And it's all divine,
Absolutely.
So perfect, dude. I got one last question for you, Chris. You down?
Yeah, man.
All right. So let's say someone listens to this episode and they're really excited about the idea of highly optimizing their life. Mm-hmm. What is the one piece of advice you would offer them that you have found the most applicable, the most valuable to highly optimize their life starting tomorrow?
The one piece of advice I would give somebody to start optimizing their life tomorrow would be, and man, I fought this for years and years. I said I didn't want to do it, and people were telling me, but is to ideally you have a great friend or somebody, but sometimes that's not, or ideally you're a therapist or a coach or whatever, but at least start with a pen and a paper and start journaling. I journal so much now. This is so funny. You set me up with this, that I literally just had to go to the doctor's office yesterday to an orthopedic elbow specialist because I got what's called a student's elbow because I've been dragging my elbow, journaling and getting things about this big old nasty little Popeye knot on my elbow that I had for 2 months because I went from not the shocker, this very much on brand with me, went from not doing it to just doing the hell out of it and journaling. And in writing out, again, I like to set my day up with a brain dump. And then I do I give myself about 20 to 30 minutes every day, a brain dump. And then my gratitudes, because I start looking forward to the gratitude, to the minutia, to some of the bigger things, to the things that are just inherently there in the universe, to start focusing outward and to tune myself there. And the other third thing is I do the I am statement. So those are the things that people, that's the way that my authentic version that we talked about, the childlike version that your best friends know of you, that your superpowers, and remind myself who I am. And then I say it in present statement. Maybe it's something that I'm not currently feeling that great or going there, but I am, whatever it is, goal is, and because or now. I said because or now, because our brain loves because, it links it into facts and it becomes true. Or now that I am, getting up at whatever clock, or putting my shoes on, putting my shoes by the door to stick with the analogy, or going to sleep in my workout clothes, whatever the heck it happens to be. Now that I do that, it's a really clever way to outsmart your clever brain. It starts making it so we can feel like we're already living in that truth. And then, like I said earlier, the brain loves being predictable and laziness. So if it already thinks that's the truth, then it just is what it is. So those are my little pro tips.
Dude, I love that, Chris. And guys, as I talked about throughout this episode resonates a lot with me because I've gone through this stuff. Before I met Rachel, I had a lot of the same things that Chris and I were both talking about. And I imagine that you listening, either yourself or someone you know intimately, is going through an issue like this as well. And the great thing is that it's really a challenge or an opportunity in disguise. That's what I see challenges as. And so at the end of the day, if you feel this episode is valuable for you or someone that you love in your life, make sure to give them Chris's information, have them reach out. He's been gracious enough to offer 30-minute consultations completely free of charge. Hop in there and start highly optimizing your ability to get in the relationship with no one else than yourself, most importantly, and then other people once you've got that relationship down, right? Once you're feeling top of the world, all of those things are so powerful. So go give Chris a follow. Go reach out to him if you think he's got some codes for you, because I know he does. So sending you guys all the love. If you enjoyed the episode, go give it a 5-star review, and I will see you guys next time. Peace for now.